Welcome back to Ryan's Game Quest, and welcome to 2025. With the brand new year comes a lot of great new games to look forward to, and so I wanted to spend some time today to take a look through some of my most anticipated games for the year. And I'm still catching up on a lot of games from last year, including Black Myth Wukong and Unicorn Overlord. And I'm also catching up on some older titles like in the PlayStation 2 library and the GameCube library, which might be a hint at what's to come for some future videos on the channel. And so if the following 10 plus games do actually end up making it out to release, then I think we're in for a pretty awesome year in 2025 overall for gaming. So without further ado, the first game on the list is Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. Death Stranding is one of those games that really sticks with you. As a game and as a narrative experience, it blew me away at every turn. Created by Hideo Kojima, the mastermind behind the Metal Gear Solid series, the game has you play as lead character Sam Porter Bridges, played by Norman Reedus. You are essentially a delivery man, a repatriate, needed to make deliveries of goods, services, medicines, and even human corpses as a means of reconnecting a post-apocalyptic United States of America, which is torn apart by catastrophic anomalies and debilitating weather, forcing those surviving to remain inside or underground. You do this by walking from station to station, albeit with all sorts of challenges like terrain, weather, and frightening enemies. I loved how almost every part of navigation in this game was almost like its own puzzle. Figuring out how to get from point A to point B or E or F was a remarkable experience that I enjoyed throughout and made me think in ways that really no other game has. Death Stranding originally released in November 2019, and in that predicted what a lot of people were doing the following year. Themes of isolation are apparent throughout the entire game's runtime. This is both one of the most emotionally resonant games that I've ever played, along with being one of the strangest. The combination of what is essentially a delivery walking simulator mixed with a third-person shooter, with a story about rebuilding America in the wake of catastrophe through social gameplay elements, is an excellent marriage in my opinion. You see, Kojima himself has called this a strand game, wherein you're not directly interacting with others almost at all, be it NPCs or other real-world players. The social systems incorporated into the gameplay allow the creation of things like signposts, roads, bridges, and the like created by other players and dropped into your world. They all have a very addicting like system. In Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, we really haven't seen much of it. We've had one quite lengthy trailer showing us new characters like the funny-looking puppet and Troy Baker's character at the end with a wild guitar solo. It all looks insane, and my hope is for either some new gameplay feature to wow me, or seeing how elements from the first game are upgraded or improved here in the sequel. The next game I want to look at is First Berserker Kazan. This is being developed by Neopal and releases March 27th, 2025. This game, as I mentioned last time with the Game Awards release date announcement trailer, continues to have my hype and will not let it go. A quote from Game Rant: first revealed in December 2023, the First Berserker Kazan is a single-player title set in the same universe as Dungeon Fighter Online, a multiplayer beat-em-up title first released in Korea in 2005 and ported globally in 2015. Incredibly, Dungeon Fighter Online remains one of the highest-grossing games of all time, earning over $22 billion in revenue by June 2023. The First Berserker Kazan promises to be darker than its inspiration, featuring gruesome, fast-paced combat with a distinctive anime style. The first 15 minutes of the game was shown during Gamescom in August, though a concrete release date remained a mystery. Finally, those eager to get their hands on the title have answers. End quote. So thankfully there will indeed be a demo coming very soon, so I'll finally get my hands on it to see how it feels before it releases actually very soon. Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist is a follow-up to 2021's Ender Lilies Quietus of the Night, a dark fantasy 2D action RPG where you can use the souls of opponents you've defeated to aid you in battle, just like a Persona, an Archetype in Metaphor Fantasio, or like a Strand from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Though I've played this game on other platforms, I recently picked up the physical copy of the game on Switch, and this was put out by Limited Run Games, who specialize in producing, as the name implies, a limited run of physical print copies of a certain game, ones that normally don't get a wide physical release, or that might have been only available through online storefronts. Now, you can't get this on their website anymore, but make sure that if you are looking to check your local game store, as they may have some hidden gems in stock. And just reading from the back of the box, quote, an ephemeral yet beautiful story of a young woman and fallen knights cursed by a cruel fate. Fearsome and powerful foes lurk in the shadows of your harrowing journey. Overcome heart-wrenching calamities as you traverse this dark path together with your knights." End quote. The first game is an excellent Metroidvania that certainly provided me a lot of challenge throughout, and I'm very excited to see what new abilities, gameplay mechanics, and adventures lie ahead in the sequel, Enter Magnolia. And from the Steam page, quote, "Decades after the events of Ender Lily's homunculi, sorrowful artificial life forms roam the land. In this dark fantasy Metroidvania, face formidable enemies and explore a bewitching post-apocalyptic world. Humans and homunculi, what awaits at the end of the quest for their salvation?" End quote. So from the looks of it and what's been shown so far, and I know that there have been a few live demos out there at various live events, it looks like a total step in the right direction with faster gameplay, an upgraded map, and potentially a deeper story than the first game. The next title potentially releasing in 2025 is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Metroid Prime is a trilogy of first-person action-adventure shooters based around the adventures of space bounty hunter Samus. And Nintendo released these games with Retro in the development seat beginning during the GameCube era in 2002. The series itself is both a spin-off and evolution of the Metroid franchise. Before the Prime trilogy, these games going from Metroid on NES in 1986 up to Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance in 2002 were 2D side-scrolling action-adventure games. If you're unfamiliar, there's a term in gaming called Metroidvania, which is essentially a genre of games that are inspired by or have similar mechanics to games like that in the Metroid series or Castlevania series. Bam, Metroidvania. Often this involves progressing through a large, sprawling map layout, fighting enemies, gaining upgrades, and using those to access different areas of the map to progress the story. Some modern examples, of course, are Hollow Knight, Ender Lilies, and Axiom Verge, but the list is endless now, and it really started with those original Metroid and Castlevania games with that similar DNA. And then came Metroid Prime in 2002, released on the Nintendo GameCube, and what a smooth transition this was, taking everything that worked well on a 2D plane and translating that to a first-person perspective. Your field of view always behind Samus's visor, with things like rain and elemental effects dripping down. To my 8-year-old brain, this was nothing short of magic. And it's still fantastic to play to this day, and it's easier than ever to play as well, as Nintendo released Metroid Prime Remastered on the Switch back in February of 2023. The sequels Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, which came out in 2004, also on GameCube, and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, which we had to wait another 3 years for and released on the Wii, are equally amazing games in their own right. I remember the wait between 2 and 3 feeling long, but now when I look back, whew. So what happened between then and now? Well, Nintendo began working with other developers for future Metroid titles. The next main release in the series would be Metroid Other M from 2010 on the Wii and developed by Team Ninja. Now, on the gameplay side of things, it was actually not that bad of a game, as it sort of mixed elements of 2D and 3D action gameplay. At least what I remember not loving about it was the strangely long and voiced cutscenes, that they just felt awkward and a little out of place in something like the universe of Metroid. 6 years go by, the next game is an odd game on the 3DS, Metroid Prime Federation Force. Having obviously at this point being a huge Metroid fan, this is one that I've never played. A year later, though, we were rejoiced with a return to Metroid Samus Returns, a new yet familiar remake and reimagining of Metroid 2, Return of Samus on the Game Boy Color. And this was developed by Mercury Steam and also released on the 3DS. This was pretty good. This was an impressive outing from the development team, and Nintendo worked with them again in 2021 with one of my favorites in the entire franchise, Metroid Dread on the Switch. So with the Metroid Prime trilogy concluding in 2007, this franchise has had some admittedly shaky twists, turns, and sometimes just complete absence. Wind back the clock a bit, before Metroid Dread, Metroid Prime 4 was announced in 2017 with just a title, nothing else. Then, 6 months ago in 2024, we finally got our first look at the game with a short yet poignant teaser of what's to come. We see Samus facing off against numerous space pirates, turning in and out of the series' famous Morph Ball, and leaving us with a moody, atmospheric jungle landscape that Samus enters into, and the vibes from this take me back to Metroid Prime 1. Also at the end of that trailer, 2025 appears on the screen, although with no firm date. I am hoping so dearly that this game comes out this year. I feel like it's time, and now with the HD remaster fresh in everyone's mind, and with the potential advantages of a Switch successor on the horizon, it's clear why this is one of my most anticipated games for this year. Another game I'm looking forward to is Little Nightmares 3. This is being developed by Supermassive Games and comes out sometime in 2025. And I absolutely adore this game franchise. It all started with Little Nightmares in 2017, a game that, when you look at it, has a very unique, distinct art style, camera angles, and of course, the grotesque giant monsters that are definitely some of the series' highlights. You see, in Little Nightmares, you play as a tiny character named Six on a very giant ship called the Maw. It's here that you'll meet, or rather evade and or sprint past, all sorts of disgusting creatures and denizens of this location, which is sort of like if you took the bathhouse from Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away and made it into a ship. You, as Six, are a prisoner, and your goal is to escape. The follow-up, Little Nightmares 2, came out more recently in 2021, only this time you play as a character named Mono, a boy with a cute little bag over his head and a trusty trench coat. I won't divulge into spoiler territory, but you do meet up with Six, the main character from the first game, to join you on a strange romp through a derelict city, once again inhabited by monsters that want nothing more than to have you two as a snack. The third entry looks to add so much more strangeness, varied locations, and downright nightmare-fuel terrors. And there's even brand new playable characters. From the Steam description, quote, Little Nightmares 3 is an atmospheric adventure game in which you follow the journey of Lo and Alone, two best friends in search of a way out of the nowhere. In two players' online cooperation or solo with an AI, work together to solve puzzles and survive in this nightmarish world, end quote. I can't wait to play this when it comes out sometime this year. On the side, I'm also anticipating anything regarding the Nintendo Switch 2, the follow-up to Nintendo's previous home console, and I love a launch season. With that, we get a bunch of fun new games and experiences to try out with brand new hardware. With the launch of the Switch in 2017, it was a little slim, with really only a few games worth picking up, most notably The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Snipper Clips. But honestly, I'm curious as ever as to what they're cooking for the next system. I'm just really hoping that I'll be pleasantly surprised. Metroid would obviously be awesome, but I'd love to see a new 3D Mario platformer. Maybe something entirely new to compete with Astro Bot, which came out last year on PlayStation. Next on the list is Elden Ring Night Rain. This is being developed by From Software, of course, and is releasing sometime in 2025. While they haven't announced a firm release date, they have announced the registration period and open beta period for the open beta of the game taking place in February. Elden Ring Night Rain is the follow-up to From Software's incredible Elden Ring, which received its only expansion content last year in Shadow of the Erd Tree. According to From, this is a standalone game, meaning it'll ship as an entirely separate product from the base game Elden Ring. It's a bit of a different game too, taking the action and combat from Elden Ring and putting that with you and two other players back to the lands between to endure an almost battle royale style gameplay loop. From Bandai Namco on the official website, quote, join forces with other players to take on the creeping night and the dangers within, featuring 3-player co-op. Take command of uniquely skilled heroes, each possessing their own abilities and distinct flair. While individually formidable, their skills create powerful synergies when they unite as a team. Overcome a relentless environmental threat that sweeps through a land that changes between each game session, and defeat the magnificent boss of that night, end quote. So you'll be going in basically either solo or with two players, defeating bosses and exploring new secrets, all with the threat of encroaching darkness at the end of those 3 nights. This sounds like so much fun to me, and I think taking what Elden Ring is and shaking it up is a wonderful decision. And with how surprised I was with Shadow of the Erd Tree, I have no doubt Elden Ring Night Rain may surpass my expectations once again. Phantom Blade Zero is a game being developed by S-Game and is an action-adventure role-playing game that has caught my attention since its reveal trailer in 2024. From the founder and CEO of S-Game via the PlayStation blog, quote, in Phantom Blade Zero, your soul, an elite assassin serving an elusive but powerful organization known simply as the Order. He was framed for the murder of the Order's patriarch and gravely injured in the manhunt that ensued. A mystic healer managed to save him from death, but makeshift cure only lasts for 66 days. He must find out the mastermind behind it all before his time runs out, against powerful foes and inhuman monstrosities. End quote. The action and gameplay based on what's been shown looks like a ton of fun, with a lot of stylish combat and dynamic combos. I'm sure that this will also be a very challenging game, very similar in a gameplay sense to that of Black Myth Wukong. And again, this doesn't have a release date, but I'm definitely hoping for sometime this year in 2025. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is being developed by Konami, and this is actually a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. And canonically, while it has the 3 in the title, it is the beginning of the series overall. So I'm not going to go any further than that. There are plenty other YouTubers who have a much thorough examination of the Metal Gear Solid series. So in other words, it would take a really long time to talk about it. But to sum it up, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is debatedly my favorite entry in the series. It follows our hero Naked Snake, who's tasked with rescuing a rocket scientist while infiltrating a Soviet Union jungle. It's awesome, and I love it. I haven't seen anything outside of the most recent gameplay trailer, so I'm super curious to see what changes or improvements are made to the gameplay systems. There was a demo for this at Tokyo Game Show, with Konami's booth being one of the biggest at the show. It was really cool. Another game that doesn't have a release date, but I'm hoping releases this year, is Judas from Ghost Story Games. This is directed by Ken Levine, the creator and lead for the BioShock franchise, a series of first-person narrative shooter-adventure games going from BioShock 1, which brings players to an underwater, post-utopian, retro 1950s city of Rapture, to its follow-up BioShock 2, and lastly with BioShock Infinite, which takes us to the skies of the city of Columbia. I love these games. BioShock is easily one of my favorite games of all time. I think it was actually one of the first gameplay videos I've ever watched back when the game was announced and shown off around sometime between 2005 or 2006. This was when YouTube was just getting going, and I remember watching it on Comcast Video of all places. The atmosphere in all these games is top-tier, S-tier stuff, and it was so fun to get lost in these worlds, especially Rapture. Judas, which is a brand new game from Ken Levine and his team at Ghost Story Games, sets to make a slight departure from what we may know of the BioShock entries. BioShock, for all its triumphs, is a fairly linear game when you get down to it. Arguably, it could be said even more so for BioShock Infinite. Judas, on the other hand, as described by Ryan McCaffrey via IGN, quote, "You play as Judas, a hacker and self-taught engineer who's part of a multi-generational trip from Earth to a new planet called Proxima Centauri aboard the colony ship called the Mayflower. The capital M mission is to continue the human race after departing Earth due to a bacterial plague. Also on board this ship, you're not particularly well liked. See, it turns out that things went seriously sideways, and it's all your fault." End quote. According to gameplay showcases and interviews, the game will have some more randomized or roguelike elements playing into a big replayability aspect. I'm very excited to see more of this game and would love for it to come out this year, but if they do need more time to cook this one, then take all the time you need. Finally, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is being developed by Sandfall Interactive and releasing sometime in spring 2025. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is a third-person, turn-based role-playing game, again releasing sometime in 2025. Everything about this game has me hooked. From the turn-based combat reminiscent of games like Persona, Metaphor, and Honkai Star Rail, to the beautiful art design and visuals. The voice acting, music, and overall sound design from what I've heard so far is phenomenal. I can't wait to play this game with good headphones. The story draws me in too. It's set in this surreal world where there's this goddess called the Paintress, who has the power to literally paint death of people of a certain age. The so-called expedition, therefore, is ultimately a quest to kill the Paintress in an effort to end the pain and suffering. Honestly, it's giving me Lost Odyssey vibes, and I'm totally here for it. Also on the side, there's a ton of games getting remade and remastered this year and re-released to new audiences, which I'm sure will bring a ton of new gameplay enhancements and quality of life features to the overall games, and some of them that I'm most excited for are these. The Suikoden 1 and 2 remasters come out on March 6, 2025, and this is being developed by Konami. I mentioned my love for both this series and this style of Japanese role-playing game in a previous podcast, detailing a game called A Yuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, a spiritual successor to the legendary Suikoden games. This turn-based JRPG series is focused on the collection and recruitment of many allies that you'll add to your party and character roster throughout the games. There's politics, drama, war, and it's all fantastic. The series received 5 mainline games, with Suikoden 5 releasing on the PS2 in 2006. It even got a few spin-offs, including one of my favorite DS JRPGs, Suikoden Tierkreis in 2008.
The remasters of both 1 and 2, which come in one package on release, look to have a ton of enhanced gameplay features, like enhanced art that will hopefully make the overall experience of these games feel even better. Lunar Remastered is being developed by Game Arts and is releasing sometime in spring 2025, and honestly I'm not too familiar with this series, but I did buy Lunar the Silver Star story for the Sega Saturn when I was in Japan last year. While I don't read fluently in Japanese, I have played maybe an hour or so, and I can already immediately tell why these games are so beloved. These are also classic turn-based JRPGs with an incredible soundtrack and music and beautifully animated anime cutscenes. If you're any familiar with the Tales of series by Bandai Namco, Tales of Arise, Tales of Zestiria, Tales of Exilia, etc., Lunar has a similar vibe going on in its presentation. Speaking of Tales of Grace's F Remastered is coming out on January 17th, 2025, and is being developed by Bandai Namco. This came out on the Wii and PS3 in 2009, and this is one myself that I haven't played, but I have played others in the series and loved these games, and it looks like a ton of fun. Freedom Wars Remastered has, as of recording, already released on January 10th, 2025, and this was probably my favorite Vita game when it originally released in 2014. It's an action role-playing game that takes place in a prison called Panopticon, and you have to hunt monsters in order to reduce your sentence, which you see above your head every time you return to the Panopticon or Hub World. It had a very Monster Hunter-esque vibe to it, where you would load up equipment and set out, with multiple assist characters, into a medium-sized map to hunt a larger monster called an Abductor. These hunts not only netted rewards, but worked toward reducing the player's sentence as mentioned previously, all in a very risk-versus-reward gameplay mechanic. It was a lot of fun back then, and truthfully one of the reasons I wanted a PlayStation Vita. And I'm just hoping that they toss the right amount of spice into this one to make it even better. And also, there are some notable admissions that you might have noticed aren't on this list. Again, a lot of these don't have release dates, but some of them do. And the ones that I'm also looking forward to are Hell Is Us, Nina the Hollower, Pokemon Legends Zeta A, the Capcom Fighting Collection Part 2, and Grand Theft Auto 6. And the final two games that I'm looking forward to that have release dates are Avowed, releasing February 18th, 2025, and Monster Hunter Wilds, releasing February 28th, 2025. And there we have it. Those were 10 plus games that I'm looking forward to the most this year in 2025. And as I said, if all of these games do manage to release this year, then I think we're in for a really rock solid year in gaming overall. So let me know down below what you are most excited for. I know that there's a lot of games still coming out that weren't on this list, so let me know what you're interested in looking forward to. But for all else, thanks for coming here to listen to me talk. This has been another episode of Ryan's Game Quest. Thank you. I appreciate you. Take care.